Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Thank you for joining us from near and far to learn more about UBC Sauder's Specialty Master's programs. It's a pleasure that you can join us here today. I'll start off by introducing myself. I'm Natalie Souresrafil. I'm a recruitment and admissions manager at the business school, and I oversee the MBAN program. Let's call that the Masters of Business Analytics. I'm joined here with my colleague, Kevin Lai, who is also a recruitment and admissions manager, and he oversees the Masters of Management program. We'll call that the MM for short. Today, we have a very special guest with us today, Carly Boettcher. She is a career manager at Sauder's very own Business Career Centre, and she's going to be chatting with us about career prospects for specialty master students. She'll talk to us about where our MBANs and our MM students have landed, and she'll be chatting about the career services and benefits our students have had access to during COVID-19. So it's a real treat to have Carly with us here today. Thanks for joining us, Carly. I'd like to acknowledge that UBC's Vancouver Point Grey campus is situated on the traditional, ancestral, unceded territory of the Musqueam people. I would also like to acknowledge that you are joining us today from many places near and far, and acknowledge the traditional owners and caretakers of those lands. Looking at the agenda for today, Kevin and I are going to be giving you all an overview of the Masters in Business Analytics and the Masters of Management program. So we'll spend the first portion of today's webinar reviewing these two programs, and then we'll hand things over to Carly, who will chat about career prospects and specialty master students. She'll speak to us about career services during COVID-19, and we'll also leave plenty of time for Q&A on anything related to careers, the programs, admissions related questions and requirements as well. So this will be a really interactive and informative discussion. If you have any questions throughout today's session, make sure you're typing your questions out in the chat box. We'll be kind of addressing those questions as they come, but rest assured there will also be plenty of time at the end as well for us to address any questions you have. So let's dive right in. Let's start off by talking a little bit about business analytics. So the field of business analytics has really exploded over the past few years. More and more organizations are recognizing the need for this very important skill set, especially in the face of, uncertain times like a pandemic, for example, and changing economies. The importance of business analytics continues to grow across industries, organizational departments, and this is international because this is really a skill that makes individuals and companies more adaptive in the face of changing times. Given this, it really comes to no surprise that the popularity of the MBAN continues to grow. Currently, UBC Sauder's MBAN program is ranked at the best in Western Canada, and it's actually number 2 in the most popular specialty master's programs globally. So this is really a one-of-a-kind program for anyone who wants to work with cutting-edge companies to interpret data and to use data to make effective business-related decisions. You also learn to become a really great storyteller so that you can help organizations make sound data-driven decisions. So in just 12 months, you can earn a master's degree from a top-tier, internationally recognized university. And the program happens to be offered right here, where I'm chatting with you guys from, Vancouver, British Columbia. In Vancouver, besides being one of the most livable cities in the world, it's currently Canada's fastest growing economy in the country. It's emerging in a variety of different industries. And of course, tech is one of them, but we're also thriving in entrepreneurship, natural resources, healthcare, oil and gas, manufacturing, transportation, and the works. It's also home to a variety of consulting firms, Fortune 500 companies, and startups. So why the MBAN program and why UBC in particular? I mean, when students ask me this question, there's a few key themes that come to mind. Well, first, there's the engaging courses and curriculum, but there's also the analytics consulting internship, the experiential learning, and the personalized career development that you get throughout the program. And we'll expand on this throughout today's session. Here's a quick snapshot of the program journey. So you'll see it's a 12-month program. The first 9 months, you're taking, it's really the classroom-based portion. It's filled with experiential learning, and the courses that you're taking really have within them the intersection between the world of business and data science. So whether you're learning about data-driven marketing, forecasting and prediction, advanced predictive business analytics, pricing analytics, consulting practices, and project management, really you're getting the business side of things all while learning how to use this under the lens of data. So essentially, you become an effective translator between the world of business, technology, and data science. So you're gaining the strong technical skills, communication skills, but you're also learning a very valuable skill, which is storytelling, so that you can speak the language of different departments, different industries as well. And career development programming, this is a module that runs throughout the entire year. And this is focused on getting you career ready for the job market, ready for the real world. And Carly will touch more on this later in today's session. The last 3 months of the program, you're working in an analytics consulting internship. So this is a paid opportunity. This is really your chance to apply everything you've learned in the program in a real life business context, working on real life business problems in real time. And what's great is that you're working under the supervision of an expert in that field. So great hands-on experience there. Here's just a few examples of some of the analytics consulting internships that we've partnered with. The partnerships change every year and they're consistently growing. But for instance, you could be working on a project with Canada Post, for instance. So an example might be, okay, well, how do I help increase efficiencies and time savings during busy times like Christmas, for example, or in this case, a pandemic? Or you could be working with Boeing and helping them determine, how do I create more fuel efficiencies during high energy consumption times like takeoff or landing, for instance. These range in a variety of different industries. And I have to say, the Business Career Centre, this is probably one of the most valuable resources that you'll gain access to throughout the program. And that comes through not only the curriculum that's embedded in the program, but also through the one-on-one career coaching support you get, access to the alumni network, company info sessions with employers, mentorship opportunities, networking opportunities. The opportunities are great there. They're endless. So let's have a look at some of your fellow classmates. So you'll see here that your classmates aren't only coming from all over the world, but they're also coming from a variety of different backgrounds. And they have a range of different work experience. I mean, work experience is not a requirement, but it's a nice to have. It's something that can make you stand out. So if you have work experience, great. If you don't, I'm sure you've got other parts in your applications that can help help you stand out. And typically, our alumni, people who graduate from the program, are going off into a variety of different industries, and they're working in a variety of different roles. So whether they're working as a business analyst, data specialist, technical analyst, financial analyst, or project manager in the technical field, really there's a big range there, and that variety is definitely there. So let's look at some of our key admissions requirements. We do have a very holistic evaluation process. So we really take the whole person into consideration when we're making any kind of admissions related decisions. First and foremost, we will look at your academic background. That comes from your GPA, as well as how you performed on the GMAT or the GRE. This is important for us because it is an academically rigorous program, and we just want to make sure that everyone can keep up with the pace. And like I said earlier, there's no minimum work experience requirement, but it can definitely be a nice to have. We look at your references as part of the application process. There's some written essays. There's a video essay as well. The video essay is about 90 seconds. And here we're not expecting a James Cameron type or Tarantino type production here. So don't let yourself get intimidated by seeing that there's a video. This is our opportunity to get a feel for your professionalism, your personality, your fit. And so that's where we gauge that. And if you tick off all those boxes, then you would get invited for a personal interview. So this would typically take place via Skype or Zoom online. Oops. So let's look at some deadlines. Due to COVID, we have extended and added some deadlines. So lucky for you guys, there's still time to apply for the program. So our final international deadline and fourth deadline for our Canadians is at the very end of this month, so June 30th. Make sure you're reaching out to us to get your application in tip-top shape for then. And the final deadline for our Canadians, our domestic applicants, so this is for Canadians and permanent residents, is July 21st. So like I said, make sure you're reaching out to us as a resource and that you're getting your preliminary candidacy evaluated by having a chat with us. So make sure you book a coffee chat with me if you want to learn about the MBAN. And now I'd like to hand things over to Kevin for the Master of Management portion of this webinar. So Kevin, over to you.
Excellent, great. So can everyone hear my audio? If you can.
Kevin, I think you're still muted.
Okay. Okay. How's that? Can you hear me now? Yes, great, excellent. So hi everyone, it's a pleasure to be able to meet you virtually. Unfortunately, of course, due to pandemic times, we can't meet in person, but there's a great way for us to reach out. So I'm just going to try to click this. Natalie, I might need you to actually help move my slides if that's okay. Yeah. Yeah, so great, excellent. Thank you so much, Natalie. Maybe we can maximize that screen if possible, please. Excellent. Thanks so much, Natalie. So, oops, I think the screen, the presentation might need to be put back up on screen again. Sorry. Great. So as you can see here, this is our campus, and this is the home to the UBC Master of Management. For those of you who don't know, the MM program is actually the first of its kind delivered in North America. We started this program about 12 years ago, and since then we've created a number of different opportunities in our program. I'm going to go over basically some of the components of our program and what makes our MM quite unique. So we can go to next slide, please. So there are basically three major foundations to our program. The first foundation, of course, is the experiential coursework that you'll go through. And during the MM program, which is 9 months, you'll be able to build your skills in a number of different business fundamentals. Now, our program has shifted, as you know, this year from an August start until an end of October start. Next slide, please. You will also get, of course, during your time in the program, personalized one-on-one career coaching with Carly, who joins us today. And of course, another foundation to the program is our mandatory project. So this is known as the Community Business Project. And we basically pair clients up with students, and our students act as consultants for these clients. And these clients will be nonprofits or social enterprises. Next slide, please. Great. So during your time in the program, we really do put an emphasis on experiential learning. Experiential learning is a foundation here at the UBC Sauder School of Business, and that is, of course, no different here in the Master of Management. During your time in the MM program, you'll be able to break out into different discussion groups. You'll be able to debate with each other, and our professors are bringing in really relevant examples into the classroom. This is, of course, not going to be impacted at all by COVID-19. With the rise of COVID-19 and pandemic times, we do see our professors really bringing in a lot of relevant content too. During your time in the program, we also use the real world as a playground of sorts. Experiential learning is also seen within the community business project. And in the community business project, you really are taking the skills you're learning in the classroom and building it out in a real world experience. Another thing that makes our program quite unique, if we can go back to the last slide, is of course the global opportunities available to students. During your time in the program, you are based here in Vancouver, but after the program is done, you do have the option of exchange and summer school opportunities with universities around the world. Now, UBC is also the only Canadian school that's part of something called the Global Network of Advanced Management, which is an exclusive network of schools that was brought together by the Yale School of Management. Students who actually finish our UBC Master of Management do have exclusive access to an optional dual degree. This dual degree is called the Master of Management Studies in Global Business and Society, and it is offered at the Yale School of Management. Next slide, please. During your time in the program, as Natalie mentioned, one of our biggest proponents to the program is, of course, the diversity that you see in your classmates. And of course, our individuals come from all around the world, and of course, from different backgrounds too. The program, as you may already know, is a program dedicated to non-business students who want to gain business fundamentals. So you'll be collaborating with students from all different types of disciplines, social sciences, engineering, humanities, economics, law, computer science, and other degrees too. During your time in the program, of course, some individuals are also coming in with different backgrounds. So next slide, please. During your time in applying for the program, you may notice that there are a number of different admission requirements that you will need to meet. For example, in our program, individuals do have to have a non-business bachelor's degree. And another thing that we do request is that students have less than 2 years of full-time post-bachelor's work experience. Now, in terms of our other requirements, we do need students to have around a B+ average in terms of academic achievement. Individuals do normally possess a GMAT or a GRE score. You will have to bring in a minimum of 2 references. These can be either professional or academic. And within the application, we do require written and video essays. Now, if your studies were actually done in a language other than English, we will require the English proficiency test. If your entire degree was done 100% in English, you won't need to worry about this test at all. Now, once you put together your application, you'll submit it, and it will take us some time to review. And if you are deemed a competitive candidate, we will invite you to a personal interview, which will be done, of course, over Skype. After the interview, you will find out within 1 to 2 weeks of whether you've received admission into the program. Okay. Next slide, please. We do have extended deadlines for our October 2020 start. So for international candidates, you have about 2 weeks left to apply and submit an application. And then for Canadian applicants, you have until July 21st to submit an application. And here, of course, are also the program fees. This information will also be available on our website too. Now, in terms of submitting an application, you will just have to apply online at sauder.ubc.ca/mm. And you can also contact myself to set up a coffee chat. We will also put up our contact information at the end of the presentation. But for any questions that you have, you can contact us at mm@sauder.ubc.ca, or you can also contact me at kevin.lee, ly@sauder.ubc.ca. Great. So now that we've discussed both our programs, the and the MBAN, I do have the pleasure of introducing Carly Boettcher. So just a little quick introduction. Carly is the manager of careers, and she's also the instructor for BA 520. And she's here to help you achieve your career goals. Carly is responsible for all career programming and services for our MMs up until the day they graduate. And today she's here to represent not only the MM, but the MBAN on behalf of Whitney Friesen. our MBAN career manager. And in general, she represents the Carly Varshney Business Career Centre. A little bit more about Carly. She holds a psychology degree from UBC Okanagan and is like Natalie and myself, a very proud UBC alumni. She completed her HR certificate from BCIT in 2019. And when she's not helping support students, she's volunteering her time with the UBC broad-based admissions team. And she also mentors young business professionals and provides HR consulting services to local businesses. So a very, very, very busy individual, as you can see. And before I turn it over to Carly, I will say that you have the chance to ask Carly your questions via the Q&A panel at the end of her presentation. And we will also take admissions questions after that. So now I will turn it over to Carly. So welcome, Carly.
Hi, everyone. Can everyone hear me? Perfect. Awesome. Natalie, if you're controlling the slides, great. That's awesome. Thank you. So yes, welcome everyone from wherever you are all over the world this morning. I'm currently in Coquitlam, BC, so I'm just outside of Vancouver, a little suburb that is where I am located this morning. And I'm here on behalf, like Kevin said, the Harry B. Varshney Business Career Centre and our Specialty Masters Careers team. And also my colleague Whitney, who's the MBAN Career Manager. She wishes she could be here, so she's here in spirit. And so, yes, I'll be speaking also on her behalf as well. So the Harry B. Varshney Business Career Centre, very fundamental part of the MBAN and MM student journey. We work with all various units within Sauder, but we also really work closely with the admissions team. And our fundamentals and our kind of key values, creating connections with students, whether that be with employers, mentors, and our alumni network. One-on-one career coaching, of course. You get access to us as soon as you're basically accepted into the program until you cross the stage the following November and even beyond. I'm still in touch with alumni from 2015. So it doesn't stop as soon as you cross the stage. And then, of course, access to our amazing Sauder and also UBC Worldwide Alumni Network. Next slide, please. So our business career services, which are available to all Sauder students, but also personalized for the MM and MBAD program. Again, one-to-one coaching appointments, company info sessions. So typically we would have employers come in the fall and throughout the year to campus, but that's not happening anytime soon. So those are actually going to be held virtually this year. And so our business development team is working closely with employers to try to set that up and make this a great student experience. And so that's going to be the busy summer for our business development team. Professional development programming, so this includes the BA 520 career development course, where we're going to talk about emotional intelligence, strengths finder, career leader, which is an assessment that we provide all students. And so we really get into the nitty-gritty of what exactly career development is, what is a job search strategy, how to set you guys up for success for interviews, and how to actually get out there and network and build relationships in the community. Online training is really huge for us. Given also the current times we're in. So for those that are interested in consulting, also for various even like marketing roles and retail type roles, case interviews are very popular right now. And so we're implementing case interview training for basically all of our students this year coming up. And so this is going to be very huge for everyone, just to set yourself up for the competition that's out there. And of course, given COVID situation, Whitney and I are going to be working very closely together over the coming weeks to help with pre-arrival online workshops and programming to get everyone up to speed and really confident when they arrive in October. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to highlight on behalf of Whitney some of the MBAN career outcomes. I know a lot of students are always interested, where do the students go after the program? And so we have some stats here, which is great. We have the 2018, which was the first cohort. and then the 2019 stats as well. And so as you can see, based on those that were looking, 2018, 91% were hired, and 84% last year of those that were actively seeking work actually found work about 3 months, by 3 months after graduation, so around February, March-ish. And we've also seen a very significant increase in the average base salary for MBANs, which is huge. And given that technology data is huge just in the future of work right now, we foresee this also hopefully increasing as we move forward as well. Next slide. And then it's always interesting to highlight, and I know earlier Natalie had said the backgrounds of the students coming into the programs, which is really interesting, but it's always interesting to see, it doesn't matter the backgrounds that you come in with, where our students, alumni, are actually going, in which industries they're actually landing. And so as you can see on the MBAN side, over the past 2 years, they're doing amazing things in a variety of industries, and it's no surprise that consulting, technology, and finance would be at the top there, but you can also see there's quite a few other various industries as well. Our graduates love to stay in British Columbia. We do promote, going out, internationally, or exploring Toronto, Calgary, other areas, but we do find that over the past 2 years, MBANs have landed right here, kind of in BC, primarily in Vancouver and in this area. And so it's a lovely city, lovely area. And so we typically see them, we see them stay close to home. So that's great. That's great to know. Next slide. And of course, on the MM side, we have the last 2 years of data here. And so based on those that were actively seeking kind of at the end of the program, 2018, 88% were able to find full-time employment. And last year we had a very great year. The group was amazing. They were out there hustling. 94% of the class actually was placed within 3 months past graduation. We also saw a significant increase on the MM side on the average base salary last year as well. And so my hope is that each year this keeps on increasing, and we actually provide the tools for the students. So we have a salary negotiation class. We get you guys prepped. We do role plays. We get you into those scenarios where you're able to go into those conversations with confidence with employers during the interview process. And next slide. And again, for the MM careers outcomes, our industries are varied as well. There's no typical, the MMs go into one area, and that's also a unique value of the MM program and those graduates that come out of this degree, is that you can kind of be placed, into any industry based on the general business foundations that you learn during the 9 months that you're with us. But we typically see finance, consulting, consumer products, technology. Those seem to be the most popular each year. And again, BC, everyone wants to stay here. No surprise, but we do see a little bit more international placements as well on the MM side. So, which is great to see as well. Next slide. So we wanted to put together one slide, Whitney and I, on just kind of a variety of companies. If you're interested in learning more about these companies, I'd say start researching them now before you arrive. But these are some companies that hired MBANs and MM grads over the past 2 years. You will see that our banks are very popular here in Canada, are kind of our top 5. They really love the Sauder talent, but the MBAN and MM talent especially. And there's also probably some companies here that you're not even familiar with. So that's why we also say to do some research and connect with alumni once you arrive, because so there's some companies out there that are doing great things, but they're just not on top of mind as well. So that's a quick snapshot that we put together for you. Next slide. So we wanted to highlight some student success stories, and so I do have some notes that I will refer to as well. But so 2019, so last year, so we have Barris and we have Kinjal. Both are doing some great things with their employers right now, but we wanted to highlight the importance of relationship building and networking, which is, I know for some, very scary, but Barris especially, he attended the MBAN Employer Networking event that's hosted each year. His focus was quality over quantity. So he had two companies in mind, KPMG being one of them. Not too sure what the other one was, but he focused on both of those companies that evening and making some warm connections and building a rapport with both of them. And so after that event, he followed up within 24 hours, which is the standard professional thing to do. And so he continued conversations with KPMG basically for about a month and a half. And then the contact that he had really connected with asked him to come in for a coffee chat. They met downtown, which actually was also kind of a pre-screen interview. And based off of that conversation initially, that he invited him into the office kind of within that week, and kind of the formal interview process developed. But within 2 weeks after the MBAN Employer Networking event, he actually had signed an offer with KPMG. And so that was him kind of doing that work and really focusing on the quality of the conversations and connections he was making. Kinjal, he was doing what we all do, the normal job applications through the job portals and doing the cover letter and the resume, applying online, and just having no luck whatsoever. So he had actually went in to see Whitney and, help me, what's going on? And so she suggested reaching out to some alumni working at EA, which was his dream employer, through LinkedIn. And so he did that, had a great conversation with the alumni. Alumni referred him to the HR team, and again, within about a month or so, with that referral, he actually received the job offer. So again, building relationships, making connections, that's huge for us at the Career Centre, and that's where we're going to get you guys confident and out there getting hopefully some of those amazing roles. Next slide, please. And we have to also include an MM success story, but this is this year. This was actually within the last month during COVID. So Kartik, one of our international students from India, met the HR manager at an annual spring UBC career fair in early March, followed up and sent application documents as it states there. And due to his conversations with both of the managers, he was actually able to get referred to the final interview. But in April, they actually had to kind of pause all interviews. And so he kept in touch with them. They followed up, and then he just received his job offer in mid-May. And so despite COVID, we're actually seeing some success kind of on the job search and on the job placements as well. So he's really happy, and I'm really happy for him. So next slide. Perfect. Oh, that's my time. If you have any questions, that's great. So either now or at the end. So hopefully we will see you in October.
Yes. Well, now is a great time for us to kind of take any questions for Carly and the BCC. So again, the admissions Q&A will follow after this. So please hold any sort of admissions related questions until we get to the next slide. But for now, for the next couple of minutes, we'd love to take any questions that students might have about career services, about the BCC, about the economy right now. Maybe not everything to do with the economy, but maybe more so the job economy. But if you do have questions for Carly, do put them in the Q&A box and type your question out, and we will answer them as we go along. Okay. That. So maybe one of the first questions I'll probably ask, because I hear this a lot from students, Carly, is when students are approaching the career services, when do they normally start looking for jobs? Would you say that they wait until the end of the program? Would you say that's a kind of program long process? Or what do you recommend for students who are used to kind of segmenting education and then prioritizing career services afterwards?
That's a really good question. Basically, kind of for each program, it's going to be a bit different. I'm going to kind of default to the side a little bit, only because the MBAN, there's the internship component and all that as well. But for those students that are really interested in finance and consulting, we see employers come to campus, or I'll say online this fall, in the fall. And so if like finance and consulting are roles, or kind of industries that you're really interested in, it's going to be this fall, basically September to December, where you're going to really have to have your resume ready, your LinkedIn ready, and all of that good to go, because they're looking to hire for next summer. And then potentially full-time next fall, kind of in a year or so. So they are out of the gate early. They only kind of go to each university kind of once per year. And so the fall is going to be the key component for those interested in finance and consulting for sure. We do get to see some employers on the finance consulting side come in late spring, especially if they haven't really found, any candidates for any roles. Will that change going forward given the situation? It might, but that's kind of typically for that recruitment cycle. For all other industries, especially if you're thinking of staying in Vancouver, it's called a just-in-time hiring phase. And so that's where we see employers based on their headcount and their talent needs and all that. It's just-in-time hiring. So they'll make a decision, hey, we need to hire so many people or one role, and then they'll reach out and they'll say, can you post this for us? Can you get us some talent? And so we see more in the Vancouver market, it's a just-in-time hiring. And so that could range from starting in September until all the way up until your graduation, when employers will start posting. Toronto, if you're excited about going to Toronto, they're just in time as well, but they're more quicker. And there's more talent and more competition out there. And so you'll see a lot of postings, but you'll also find that the postings will also kind of be gone quickly, sometimes even within a week. So just because of the population and all that. So it depends on the industry you're interested in. It depends also kind of individually. We find students, they also want to just focus on their studies. And so they'll wait until the spring before the program's finished to start looking for work. And so that's where the personalized coaching comes in. We work with you and we meet you where you're at. And so if you're not going for finance consulting and you want to wait a few months, then that's fine. That's totally fine. And as the stats show, we will get you hired. So there's no issues there. So.
Ooh, thanks, Carly. Another question here, it is earmarked by Natalie. When could the 2020 intake start using the resources provided by the BCC?
That's a great question. So as soon as you're admitted into either program, you have access to myself and Whitney. I've already had a few kind of pre-coaching conversations with 5 or 6 of the MMs that have been admitted so far. And so basically it'll be just, conversations to get to know each other, and then just access to some of the resources, especially now online resources that we can provide. As soon as you're accepted into the program, you do have access to us, and then any online programming coming up before the official start of the program. So, yeah.
Great, thank you. One question here from Tala. Carly, how are the MM students from Sauder getting recruited in Toronto? And you touched on this a little bit previously in your answer about the different kind of the length of when applications stay up. Can you maybe help answer this?
Yeah, so we have a great alumni network, Sauder alumni network in Toronto, so that definitely helps. This year, not sure if it's going to be happening next year, but this year in February, I took for a week some students out to Toronto, and so we met with some companies out there. We had an alumni networking event, and so there's opportunities to get you noticed in Toronto, even though you're going to be based wherever you are kind of in the world for your program. And so we really rely heavily on our employer relationships and also our alumni relationships out there. But if there's a company that we have no connections with, but that you're interested in exploring, that's when you'll be working with myself or Whitney very, very closely, and possibly our business development team, either to make introductions on your behalf or just to help you along in the process to get noticed. So last year we had 5 MMs go out to Toronto, 2 found positions from Vancouver, and 3 just after the program moved out there and kind of just started looking around and were able to find roles. So, but it's going to be the motivation and kind of up to each individual to do that. So, yeah.
Great. We also do have a question for Dambun. So the internship is of course mandatory for MBAN students. How many MM students after the program is done decide to pursue perhaps an internship rather than a full-time position? And do you see any sort of advantages in terms of going for an internship rather than moving into a full-time role right away?
That's a good question. I think for internship, especially for international students, and especially if they would like some Canadian work experience or working for a Canadian company, internships are totally okay. I see no problem with internships whatsoever. Maybe the significant, I would say, not problem, but maybe concern would be that it's not a guarantee that the internship would convert to a full-time opportunity. So it would just be a matter of time management or having some conversations with your direct supervisor in your internship to kind of a month before you might think it's going to end. Is there a possibility of me continuing on, or should I start looking for other work? Because you're going to have to start putting that into play if your internships come to an end. So we do see some MMs and some NBANs also have converted internships into full-time opportunities based on their work ethic, and it's a good fit. And so internships, I think, are good for those that just want even a little sample of an industry or a role just to see if it's a good fit. But there's no issues with doing internships versus full-time at all. It's individual. It's up to, it's a personal decision for sure.
Great. Another question that was earmarked, and you might need to look into your crystal ball, Carly, as we know this, but how do you see the job market in Canada currently being affected by COVID-19? And do you predict any big changes? I think maybe I can also jump in a little bit, is that we've been hearing a lot about a lot of jobs looking at virtual appointments, right? So looking at things converting over to a virtual perspective. Many individuals have been starting their internships, of course, and positions online. It's not the traditional kind of going to the office and big hurrah, but kind of in your experience, kind of in what you've been seeing so far with COVID-19, do you see it impacting the job market in Canada by a huge amount? And if so, what are some positives we can also draw in terms of impact? Because I know that sometimes people like to focus on negatives.
No, that's a good question. I mean, there's some industries, we're hearing from our business development team kind of every week. They're giving us, because they're talking to employers on a daily, weekly basis right now. The industries that obviously are affected right now would be, tourism, Boeing, for example, unfortunately, like the airlines and all of that. So, finance, we've been told as of last week, the banks are still, in Canada at least, are active. They're still hiring. They're still looking for top talent in different roles. It's just a matter of, again, like you said, Kevin, moving kind of everything online. Technology, so the startups especially, they are going to be struggling. And so that's going to be interesting, I think, to see within, 3 to 6 months how some of the startups that were initially going really well, and that includes the tech sector here in Vancouver too, right? So, but the one thing we've heard consistently since mid-April, the healthcare industry is going to need a lot of support and a lot of help, and whether that's business analysts or HR people, or there's going to be a lot of support for the healthcare field. And so I think that's going to be a big industry, and it doesn't matter if you don't even have a healthcare academic background, the fact that you'll be getting a business degree with us at Sauder, we can actually help you kind of get into some roles to help the healthcare industry as well. So, and also the education industry too. So, yeah, it's so tough to say, but we know that finance is secure, consulting is secure, healthcare is secure, but they're going to need some support. Tech sector, depending on kind of the company and the industry, but it's more kind of the smaller startups and also the tourism and the the airlines and all that are going to be struggling, I think, to be honest, for a while.
Thank you. Maybe we're kind of coming close to the end of the question period. Can you maybe walk us through, Carly, a little bit about these virtual networking sessions? A lot of candidates come to us and they say, I want to network in person, which might not happen for a while for anywhere around the world. In your experience, how do these virtual networking sessions work? And how does BCC support that?
That is a good question. We were trying to figure that out. My colleague Gerard, he's on the call, we actually did a test, was it last week or 2 weeks ago, with alumni and some current students just to see what kind of a networking event would be like online, and we had some great success. But we foresee employers using, especially if they're using Zoom, the breakout room functionality, and so maybe some more intimate. There might be 4 or 5 students kind of in a breakout room with HR manager and having a conversation, and then maybe they'll move to a different room. And so I think the breakout rooms are going to be really key. And I think, and we're hearing from employers that it's going to be a bit more probably casual. It's actually going to be not so kind of formal presentation-ish, right? So I think it's going to be more of casual networking atmosphere kind of going forward for some of these events. And so Malcolm on our business development team has been talking to a lot of the banks and trying to help them kind of figure out how we can make it a really good student experience. And so it's going to be interesting to see actually how it pans out for all of the events coming up. So yeah.
And maybe the last question, because I know sometimes this comes up in my chats, is can you tell us a little bit more about some of the soft skills training, the emotional intelligence training that the BCC does? And, we talk a lot about resilience, we talk a lot about optimism, and especially that's seen now in pandemic times. Can you tell us a little bit more about that training that the BCC does with students?
Yes, that's great. So all of the career managers, including myself, we've been, it's called ECR certified. And so we had Dr. Martin Newman from the UK come in about 3 or 4 years ago now to certify us on the emotional capital report. And so it's basically a report that every student that is accepted into Sauder has access to, that they fill out. It's an online assessment. And so then once they've filled out the online assessment, they actually have a debrief with myself or another certified coach that actually we go over 12 EQ competencies together, and it's based, and it will come out whether it's a signature strength, do you need some development, or needs improvement. And so we actually look at 12 core EQ competencies together, and then kind of build out a strategy plan on how to kind of work on those. And so it's a really, really great assessment. We actually had to do it as coaches and learn about ourselves while we were being certified. And so even though it was 3 or 4 years ago, I know what I need to work on, and I know where I need to develop areas of EQ. And so it's always great to see that we can also work with students to develop their emotional intelligence before they go out to the market. And that's huge. And that's the kind of the most essential part of, I think, kind of the career development programming as well. So, and the strengths finder assessment is huge as well. Just knowing your strengths and where you can pull on your strengths, whether it's in group projects or individually, is also huge as well. So.
Thank you so much, Carly. Of course, on behalf of the recruitment and admissions team, I also want to thank Carly for her time today and putting together that great presentation. So thank you for your time and thank you for joining us today. Now we are going to move over into our admissions related questions Q&A. So we will ask that, sometimes details do get personal. So if you want, you can send personal specific questions to the emails that you see on screen. If you have more general questions, we will be answering that today in our Q&A. So Natalie and I will be going kind of one by one back and forth between the questions that we choose. So basically, maybe we can start with one of the questions that keeps coming up is, my scores aren't looking great, or my GPA is not really strong. Am I still going to be considered for admission? So I do want to emphasize that we do take a very holistic application, and we do take a very holistic view towards applications. So if your GPA is not, it's a little bit below competitive, but you have quite a strong GMAT or a GRE, you might have very strong references, your application essays are really good, and if you move to the interview stage, the interview goes well, you can certainly be considered for admissions into the program. Again, we are looking at diverse individuals. We're looking at individuals from all different types of areas in a very holistic sense. So that will answer that question. And maybe I'll turn it over to Natalie to pick a question to answer.
Thanks, Kevin. So a common question I'm seeing come up is related to scholarships. Now, when we're looking at scholarships, there's generally two channels that are available when you're thinking scholarships. Now, first, there's the merit-based route, wherein you submit your application and then the committee reviews your profile holistically and would administer a scholarship. Now, typically about 45% of the class does end up getting a scholarship of some shape or form. There's no additional steps required to take to be considered for the merit-based scholarships other than having a stellar profile. So that's one avenue. The next avenue is also the external scholarship route. Now, the external scholarships are all advertised and displayed on UBC scholarship page. Sauder has its very own scholarship page too, but what you can do is you can look at the scholarship tab on our website and assess which scholarships you're eligible for and apply for each of those separately. Now, again, like I said, because they're external, you would have to be applying for those all separately based on whether or not you meet their criteria. So there might be certain scholarships that are eligible for certain groups of people with a certain type of background and specialization. I would encourage you to visit that link on our page and make that self-assessment for which scholarship opportunities you are eligible for, in addition to which ones have a current application deadline that is still open. While we're on that topic, I'm seeing another quick question that I'll quickly address because it's coming up a fair bit, if you don't mind, Kevin. But processing times, how long does it take to process? So this is a popular question I'm seeing here. And the short of it is, the sooner you apply into the program, the sooner you know if you're in or not. So typically processing can take from anywhere between 6 to 8 weeks, but generally once you have your interview, you typically get an answer from our admissions committee within 5 to 10 business days. So if you've gotten to the interview stage, the light is close at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah. So again, I do want to emphasize, if you do have questions, you can put them in the Q&A box and we will try to answer as many as we can today. One question that I am seeing also is that, what does it take to get my application read? In terms of processing, we do require unofficial copies of certain documents. So for example, we can have unofficial transcripts. We can have your unofficial score test copy in order to start evaluation. But we basically need these parts into the application before we start processing. You do have until August 25th to submit your documents to us in official form. This also does include test scores. However, if you do wait until August, it will take a while for us to start processing your application. So as Natalie emphasized, we do recommend that you try to submit all different parts of your application as soon as possible so that we can start processing. Another thing that I probably do want to say is that in order to start the program online, which is where we'll go to, you do need to have a valid Canadian study permit. So to get that processing again, you do have to take into account how long it takes to get the study permit. So we do try to emphasize to students to submit their applications as soon as possible and start to write their GMATs or their GREs. You do have to get into the contact with the individual testing bodies to see what is available starting in your country. The GMAT and the GRE in many countries, for example, are offered online. If they are not currently offered online at the moment, do get in touch with the individual tests to see when that's going to be possible, and also if your country is able to, when you're able to start taking these tests in person. Okay.
Great. Another question that is coming up is about the structure and the format of the courses for this upcoming fall. So as a lot of you may already know, the commencement of our program has shifted from an August 28th start date, August 31st start date, excuse me, to an October 28th start. So our programs, the MBAN and the MM, have shifted to a start of October 28th. Initially, the program will be online. So for the first 6 weeks, things will be online from October 28th till December, I think it's 12th or 13th. It will be online. We'll then break for Christmas holiday, winter holiday, and then we'll shift to in-person classes in the new year. So early January, the intention is to shift to in-person classes.
One question right here. We do have a question around examinations for the GRE score. Is it the sum of verbal and quantitative sections that matter? So yes, in both the tests, the GMAT and the GRE, that test score that you do see is the sum of the scores. We don't look at the integrated reasoning section or the analytical writing score. So these two sections will not be considered during your time in having your application process. You do have to finish these sections on the test itself. So what I'm basically saying is that when you get to the analytical writing section, you can't just get up from your test and leave. You do have to complete that section in some form or manner. However, we do only look at the scores from the quantitative section and the verbal section on both the GMAT and the GRE.
Yes, and just to emphasize about the virtual nature of the program, at the beginning, you will be able to stay in your respective countries if you're not in Canada at the time. However, you do have to ensure that you do have your student permit before the commencement of the program. You will not be able to commence the programs without your student permit. This will be required before October 28th. I have some questions around, what if COVID persists and what that's gonna look like in the new year. Right now, touch wood, we're doing a fantastic job in Vancouver, in particular, in flattening the curve. So we do intend to go ahead with an in-person start in January. However, health and safety is always going to be top of mind, top priority. We will make any accommodations necessary, but for now, we do intend to go ahead with an in-person start in January.
I do have a question here around interviews and what time it's normally arranged. So we do have interviewers who put up their individual time slots. So when a candidate is selected for an interview, they will be able to go into the system and be able to pick the time slot that is convenient for them. So out of the time slots that is available, we try to have our interviewers open up a variety of different time slots that could work for different time zones. So it should be able to work for you. And then you'll be able to pick your time slot, and then the interview will take place over Skype. And if Skype is not available in your home country or it's blocked in your home country, you can email in to let us know, and we'll try to find alternatives such as Zoom or another video conferencing service that could work. And so another question that we also do have, and maybe just to kind of round up and finish up the presentation today, in terms of applying for the study permit. So in order to get that expedited and to ensure that students are not being rejected from that process, we do want to ask that students start looking up what is needed within the study permit and bringing in required documents together. So if you do receive a favorable admission decision from us, you can start applying for that study permit right away. In many different countries, the Canadian study permit can be applied online. You will need a valid acceptance letter from us in order to continue in your application for the study permit. But we do emphasize that for all of our individuals who are interested in starting the program in October 2020, to bring your documents together, start collecting that information. So as soon as you get that valid acceptance letter from us, you can go ahead and start applying for your study permit and get that process quicker. So I think we will probably finish off today's presentation now. On behalf of the recruitment and admissions team, we would like to say thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you again to Carly for coming out and joining us. And thank you for everyone for submitting such great questions over to us. If you do have any more questions for Natalie and myself, do feel free to send your specific questions over to these individual emails, and we will try to get through to them and reply to you as quickly as possible. Another note, you can also set up an individual coffee chat, a virtual coffee chat with myself or Natalie through these emails. So go ahead and send those questions over, and we hope to get in contact with you soon. Again, our program deadlines will be up on our website, and we hope to see you starting in end of October 2020.
Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful afternoon. Thanks for joining us and for logging in.
Thank you, everyone.